What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of my rock review. Excuse me for one second. Yeah, fuck it. Okay. Sorry about the way this camera's positioned. I kind of have it charging in a weird way. So the album I'm about to review tonight is the Beach Boys. Um, 11th studio album. Wow. Pet Sounds. Released in 1966 on, I believe it's on Capitol Records. Let me check. Yeah, Capitol Records. Yeah. And singles albums known for are "Wouldn't It Be Nice," "Sloop John B," and "God Only Knows." And "Oh Caroline No," that a lot of people kind of consider that a single, but that was like more of like a solo single for Brian Wilson. But I'm gonna get more into that when I review this album. Bet you guys are kind of surprised. I know shit about the Beach Boys, but yeah, I do listen a little bit of this shit, you know. Alright, the members of the Beach Boys include what's the cats? Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Carl Wilson, Mike Lowe, and Al Jardine. Okay, so the Beach Boys, in case y'all don't know, they were a rock group based in Hawthorne, California. They got their start when Brian Dennis and Carl, they kind of like had their own band and shit like that, and they were under the supervision of their own father, Murray Wilson. And so, what ended up happening, I believe that you know, they hooked up with Mike Love, who was like their cousin, and Al Jardine, who was like a high school friend of Brian and shit like that. So they formed a band and everything. I'm just gonna give a synopsis because, for one, the Beach Boys released countless albums before this, and two, my camera has a time limit right now, and I'm trying to actually film this, and everything like that, before the time limit. So I might have to split this video into two parts, maybe, but bear with me. So fast forward to 1961 and shit like that. They dropped their first single, "Surfing," and yeah, surf. And that was like basically the Beach Boys. Like they were really like into like this whole surf. Beaches, of course, surfing, and that was like a common theme in like the first era of the Beach Boys. Let me put it to you that way. And surfing, it was a success, and they had their first gigs and everything, and so they dropped their first project, Surfing Safari, in 1962. And yeah, they dropped Surfing Safari in 1962 and stuff like that. And yeah, so dropped that, and then after that, like in 1963, they dropped Surfing USA, and that album was actually very important because, for one, Brian Wilson, he kind of took over as a songwriter and arranger, and this was actually the first time where he was doing double tracking on his vocals and shit like that. So then, then they dropped uh, shit. Give me one second. Then they dropped Surfer Girl in 1963 and shit like that. And let me stop. I'm not a big Beach Boys fan though. I'm really not a big Beach Boys fan like that. And this is like the only first album I've heard from them. Cause I liked it, a lot of the songs off of this, of course. So I'm just gonna do a quick. Since my time is running off a limit, I'm just gonna run down a quick about all the albums they dropped before. 1963 they dropped Surfing USA, Surfer Girl, and Little Deuce Coupe. 1964 Shutdown Volume. Oh, 1963 as I should say. 1964 they dropped Shutdown Volume 2, All Summer Long, their Christmas album. 1965 The Beach Boys Today, Summer Days, and The Beach Boys Party. Alright. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the nitty gritty. Okay. So it wasn't until like 1964, and the Beach Boys, they had a popularity, but you gotta remember, back in 1964, that was the beginning of the British invasion, and so with Capitol, they started giving all their time to the Beatles and shit like that, and so this caused Murray to fight for the band and shit like that, and say like, well, we were here first, yada yada yada. And so yeah, and so that same year in '64, Brian, he wrote his last surf song, which was like "I Get Around," which you guys have all heard that song before. And so yeah, and so with the All Summer Long, they dropped what I got All Summer Long. They had like very like xylophones, or very like intricate instruments and shit like that. So yeah. Fast forward, um, also that year, like, they kind of changed like their lyrical stuff and stuff like that. Especially when it came to like the Beach Boys Today, Brian Wilson wanted to go like more deeper, you know, with writing about love and shit like that. And also, I think around that time, I think that's either 64 or 65. I think it was like late 64. Brian Wilson, he had like a panic attack and shit like that while they were on tour and shit like that. So he did not leave the group, but he did not want to. He stopped touring for a while and stuff like that. And it was also around that time where he got hooked up in doing psychedelic drugs and stuff like that. And so that kind of like influenced him to like, because like with the psychedelic drugs, he heard sounds only in his head, and it just possessed. Like he hears things that humans can't. How can I put this? Like that's the reason why he called it pet sounds, because he hears shit that humans can't really hear, stuff like that. So yeah, and with that, on that case, he hooked up with co-songwriter Tony Asher, who at that time he was known to like do jingles for commercials and stuff like that. And they had like a good bond and everything, and they did their first song, "You Still Believe in Me," and the rest is history, I guess. So that's why like so that's why like they started working on a concept album. Well, they didn't really know it was gonna be a concept album, because people have said that this was like really the first concept album. It's the first concept album in rock music. I would say, in my opinion, I think Frank Sinatra's "In the Wee Small Hours," an album I do need to get. That's the first concept album. But that's another story for a different day. So yeah, and with this old album, he was Wilson was very influenced by Phil Spector's like Wallace Sound and shit like that. So yeah, and so once the group, so while he recorded this album solo wise, like he basically having like weird like it's everyday objects, and you would use them as instruments like Coke cans, water bottles, jugs, yeah, like very weird shit. You know what I'm saying? So once the group got out of touring, they basically heard it, and it was like a lot of controversy, a lot of group infighting because they felt like they wanted to stick to the old original formula since they had like a lot of commercial success with that. And yeah, I think what else? So yeah, like especially like Mike Love, he kind of like had a lot of things to say, especially with the song "I Know There's an Answer," which is also known as "Hang On to Your Ego." And I'm gonna get more into that when I review the album. And he famously talked about this in like a 1970 Rolling Stones article. And so they finished the whole album, added the background vocals, and this album was released. Now the reason why at the time the album kinda it did it didn't really do that. I feel like from what I looked up about this album, commercial wise, it did good, but it wasn't as good as like the previous efforts. So the label hurry up and did like a greatest hits album right after this album was released. Yeah. So yeah, this is the cover of the album. You see all the members like feeding animals and shit like that. And right here you got pictures of them performing. Alright. Okay, so how much time? Okay, I have 20. I have a lot of time left. Okay. So yeah, sorry if my the synopsis about the Beach Boys was kind of half-assed though. It is what it is like, cause I was meaning to like do this review a couple of times. Like I wanted to do this review last year in honor of the album's 50th anniversary, but at the time I did not have the album at the time. And then I copped it like when I was at Urban Outfitters. I think for about 22, 23 bucks. I was like, hell yeah, I'll get this shit. Yeah. So right now I'm reviewing it and like yeah. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11. About 13 songs, all produced by Brian Wilson. Let's get it started. Oh, another thing too. Basically the personnel it consists of like his own band and his own Brian Wilson's own session musicians as they add like a lot more strings and saxophones of course. So yeah, you'll be surprised about what I'm about to say about some of these songs. Track number one, Wouldn't It Be Nice? One of my favorite songs off this album. Like it's just a feel good song. Every time you hear that, dun, 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 it just puts you like in a good mood and shit. Basically, what I got from that is like a couple falling in love and stuff like that. You know, you young in love, and then all you want to think about is like, I want you in my life forever and shit like that. So, wouldn't it be nice if we just got married and shit like that? And so, yeah, very cool song and stuff like that. Like, it is like one of like whenever people mention like the Beach Boys and stuff like that, that's like one of those songs where like everyone knows, even if you're not like a Beach Boys fan and shit like that. So very good song and shit like that, classic. Then the next song, You Still Believe in Me. That's like more of like a classical kind of song and shit like that. And basically, what I got from that song is like, um, basically, would you still like be down for him and shit like that? Would you still be down for him and stuff like that? And would you believe in our love and where our love will last? So yeah, very okay, cool song. Not one of my faves, but okay. Track number three, That's Not Me. Very cool song. Basically, what I got from that song is if you guys ever for all my Christians and stuff like that, if you guys ever read like Hold on, I got distracted. If you guys ever read the Bible, there's like this passage called like the prodigal son and shit like that. The son who didn't want to do right by his dad, so he goes out in the real world and shit like that, only to find out that the real world is not as attractive as he thought it would be. So he returns home and shit like that. So with this song, it's talking about like Brian Wilson's self doubts and shit like that, you know. And you can tell, like, I've heard him interviews saying that he revealed a lot about himself with this song. So yeah, very good song right here. I love the background vocals and shit like that the Beach Boys provide, like, especially like in the second half, like when they do like like the way they harmonize that shit was amazing. Then we have "Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder." Oh my, whew. That is like one of the most somber songs off this whole project and shit like that. Like, just the whole slow instrumentation and the way like it gave like a very in-depth look about a crumbling romance and just like I don't want to hear no words, just feel me and shit like that. Just feel my love and everything like that. Very cool song and shit like that. Very good, dope song. Then the next one is "I'm Waiting for the Day." I'm waiting for the day. Give me a second. Basically, that's more like a. It's more like a poem. Um, all my guys can relate to this and shit like that. You know when you have a girl you like and shit like that. Yeah, she's dating this motherfucker, this stupid motherfucker and shit like that. But yet she always cries to you whenever she does something wrong. But you don't want to hear that shit. You just want to be like, I'm just waiting for the day where I just want to be with you and shit. Ooh. He's like, I don't want to hear that shit. I'm just waiting for the day till you leave him, and I can treat you a lot better and shit like that. That's what I got from that song. Yeah, very cool song. It's like one of the more relatable songs off this whole project. Next song is "Let's Go Away for a While." Nothing to it. It's just an instrumental and shit like that. It was originally supposed to have lyrics, but like I think Brian Wilson said like it just felt more strong as an instrumental and shit. Next song, "Sloop John B." That's like a traditional folk song and stuff like that. And yeah, I could have done without that song. I know a lot of people like that song, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of and then that's side one of the vinyl. Side two, "God Only Knows" is the next song. Oh wow, this was actually not sung by Brian. It was actually sung by Carl Wilson. Basically, he's talking about your heart being broke so many times and shit like that you just want to kill yourself and shit. But like he only just says like God only knows what I'll do without you and shit. Ironically, that song is playing in the background. And from what I looked up, Brian Wilson said that he was very influenced by the Beatles' Rubber Soul album and shit like that. Which I'm gonna get into like the whole Beatles, Beach Boy, their musical, whatever you want to call it, their musical rivalry. I'm gonna get much into that once this review is over and shit. Next song is "I Know There's an Answer," and this basically is a song that's talking about Brian Wilson's reactions, to the LSD and shit like that. And originally, the song was called "Hang On to Your Ego," and the Beach Boys they heard the song after they got off tour, and it was just like Why are you writing about drugs and shit like that? That's not what we're about. But let's be real, like I'm not trying to like bash like the Beach Boys, but I kind of like what he did with the whole project because let's be real, you don't want to always talk about like surfing and the beaches because once in a while that will kind of get a little old. It will kind of be a little gimmicky if you ask me, but different times, different strokes, whatever you want to call that shit. But yeah, next song is Here Today. I gotta kind of hurry because I got about a couple more minutes left. Here Today is basically talking about the narrator that like you found your new love and shit like that, but heartbreak will soon follow and shit like that. That song was okay, yeah. Next song, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. One of this is like my second favorite song off the album. Like this whole song was so relatable and shit, you know? Like, mm, it's my special shit. But yeah, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times was just so relatable because he's talking about like his insecurities and like every time like something good happens and shit like that, it always just taken away from him. And I just love the way like he breaks like he's like sometimes I feel very, and then the drums just like the drums just come in and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the whole multi-track vocals, like it's just the little things I noticed about that song, which I love. Like that's probably the most darkest song off this whole album, if you ask me. Then we got Pet Sounds, which is another instrumental and shit like that. Smooth, very jazzy and shit like that. I like the jazz they did with that. From what I looked up, this was actually intended to be a theme for a James Bond film and stuff like that. So I kind of thought it would fit, especially if you guys are my James Bond heads, especially if you like it from like the '60s and shit, when it was actually a James Bond and shit. Y'all will get it. Last song, Caroline No, my favorite song off this whole album. Like when I heard this song, cause the first time I actually heard the song was when I watched that Brian Wilson biopic and stuff like that, and I just watched it, cause I was just bored. I heard the song, I was like, I immediately wanted to know what the hell was that song and shit. My only gripe about the song, well, it's two gripes I have about the song. Let me talk about the song first, okay? Originally, it was a Brian Wilson single because it was like I think the first song he recorded, one of the first he recorded for this, and basically he's talking about a love for this high school girl named Carol and stuff like that. And basically, what I looked up about it is like from what I looked up, it's like a couple of stories I've heard about the song "Oh Caroline No." He's in love with this girl that kind of like turned him down and stuff like Brian Wilson, and then Tony Asher had a different girl named Carol, and they had recently broke up while they were doing a song and shit like that. So it was like a very ironically how both of them kind of had a name Carol, so they want to combine that together and shit like that. Now the graphs I have with this song, let me put it to you this way. So there's actually two versions of the song. The version on the project is basically like a more shorter version and stuff like that. And the original version had like Brian Wilson basically had his usual voice. The reason for that shorter version because his dad sped up the vocal because he didn't like how his voice kind of sounded all somber and shit like that. So he wanted the voice to sound more youthful and more expression and shit like that. And so, if you ask me, I love both versions, but I always like to listen to the original version of the song. 'Cause I just liked how more darker it was. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's all the songs off this album. My personal opinion, this is a classic album and shit like that. You know, very good album. It's a classic by many people. A lot of people have called this like one of the greatest rock albums, and I have to really agree with that. You know, like let me talk about like the Beatles and shit, cause it's gonna drive me crazy. So it's kind of crazy how much like the Beatles and the Beach Boys, you know, their careers were very different, yet it was like very similar in a sense because like while like the Beatles, you know, while the Beatles, you know, they kind of did talk about like what am I saying? Like let me put it this way. Rubber Soul inspired Pet Sounds, and I think like Pet Sounds inspired Revolver, and to an extent Sergeant Pepper, and Good Vibrations when they came up with like Good Vibrations. Well, actually no, wait, I'm tripping. I'm tripping. Okay, Rubber Soul inspired Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds inspired Sergeant Pepper. Sergeant Pepper inspired Good Vibrations and Smile. So you know, with all the rivalry kind of came up with like all this good music and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But if you ask me, while the Beatles were like, while the Beatles, you know, they kind of like, oh, damn, I'm tripping. Well, you guys know what I'm getting at. I'm sorry. My mind just went out of the way and shit like that. But one thing I loved about this album was like it was just so. It talked about like a relationship, like very mature relationship, especially coming from a time where like a lot of rock acts they would talk had the same formula like tears. Oh, I got broken up, crying, tears on my pillow. Oh well, we're gonna be together forever. While this album kind of did talk about them, it kind of be like, okay, well, we're gonna experience heartbreak and sooner or later, so that's how we gonna do and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's like more deeper than the heartbreak and shit like that. It's more deeper than that. And so that's one thing I loved about this whole album. And like I said, I'm not like a big Beach Boys fan, but this album is just so fucking good and shit like that. Like I like that whole psychedelic kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And so I mentioned Smile, and so they were originally going to come out with an album called Smile right after this, and Good Vibrations was like a lead single and shit like that. But what ended up happening, Brian Wilson had like a you guys should know he had like a nervous breakdown, and so they had to scrap that, and they came up with the whole Smiley Smile and shit. But yeah, if you guys like want to recommend me some Beach Boys albums to listen to, feel free. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this album. Must have in your collection. They re-released this whole album a couple of times. Most recently, I think last year they re-released it for the 50th anniversary. So yeah, must have in your collection. And that's all the time I have. Stay tuned for more. Peace.